Yo, welcome back to the Cat Podcast. This is episode 304. That is Taylor McLeod over there. I am Nate Sperlin. It is your weekly tour through hip hop. Welcome back once again. Shout out to everybody who has found a new purpose in life with the NBA playoffs now approaching. Taylor, real quick, before we even get into this podcast, right? So we got Celtics and we got Nets here. You're a Boston Celtics fan. I'm Brooklyn Nets fan adjacent is what I'll say.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
With that being said, I just want to ask, like, the tone until the series is over. Are we gonna be like cordial with each other, or are we gonna like?
Yeah, you're not a Nets fan. I don't get.
All right. So we're gonna be a little petty. It's all good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's fun. I'd rather honestly, I'd rather be rooting against people or like a team that like you, Obas, everybody. Like, it's more fun that way.
Yeah, it's definitely more fun.
I don't care about the Hawks or whatever. Like, obviously Trae Young's like the villain right now, but I'd rather it be this way.
Trae Young is the best villain in the NBA, and that he's if there's one guy that you need a fan base to rally around to hate, Trae Young is gonna get that job done for you. He is. Cleveland's probably saying fuck Trae Young as we speak, to be honest with you. But that being said, thank you to everyone who is watching on YouTube, and thank you to everyone who is listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, and more. You can also like watch on Spotify now. I realized that like 2 weeks ago. Like, you can upload the video and the video is on Spotify. That's kind of cool. Shout out to them for finally doing that. Do us a favor, hit the like button or subscribe. You don't have to do that now. You could do that later once you decide that you like the program. But whenever you decide to like the program, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at OldMilk Media. Check out the Old Milk Spins playlist, and also watch episode 6 of the It's All Opinion podcast that is out now on this very platform. Before we get into anything else, we just decided that we're going to be petty towards each other, which is fine. I still want to know how you're doing, Taylor. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Since we talked last, I drove across the country, moved to the Bay Area. I'm currently sitting in a fold-up camping chair with my computer set up on a laundry hamper. So we're setting a new place up. But yeah, I did that. Been in contact with you about these albums that have been coming out. I'm excited for some stuff coming up. So in a good spot. How are you?
I'm doing good. Future is coming.
I know.
That's all. Future is coming. The GOAT is coming. And I just, but that being said, we did miss a very, very, very busy hip hop week last week. So this week we're gonna just go back to the albums that we listened to for the past week. And the first one we're going to be talking about is Vince Staples' Ramona Park Broke My Heart. That record, is 16 tracks and it is 41 minutes long, and it features just 3 features really: Mustard, Lil Baby, and Ty Dolla $ign. Taylor, what did you think about Vince Staples' new album?
As you know, I thought that Vince Staples, his album last year was definitely my favorite project of 2021, and to me, because of how concise it was and because of how cohesive it was the best project of 2021. I know a lot of people are going to disagree, and I know we had a lot of heavy hitters, especially towards the end of the year. Mm-hmm. I think that Ramona Park Broke My Heart is taking Vince Staples and turning it into the full idea. I think last year was almost like a prelude to this project. Obviously, it's its own thing. It's a standalone project, but I think it was giving us a look at not necessarily a different side of Vince Staples. I think that's a misconception with a lot of this, is that this hasn't been what he's doing. And I think it's just the music sounds different, but he's been talking about this stuff for over a decade now. So I think that this is Vince Staples at his best, in the sense that where the music used to be a little more brash, a little more in your face, these instrumentals are more laid back and gives Vince a little bit more room to show his life and the stories he's telling just by themselves, and not so much of the background stuff that can be not distracting sometimes, but you know what I mean. I guess distracting is the word. You can kind of focus on the entire project or product instead of really listening to what he's saying and letting it sit with you.
First of all, I agree with you. I think that this is definitely a continuation of Vince Staples. Does that count as an LP? I guess it does. How many tracks? The
There's
album
10.
10, that's LP. Excuse me. The LP that he put out last year. Um, this is the first time in a while that Vince Staples has taken a sound from a previous project and improved it or worked on it. Because when you look at the Big Fish Theory to FM, those sound nothing alike. And then
Right.
FM to Vince Staples, those sound nothing alike as well. So I like this from Vince Staples. I like the fact this isn't probably my favorite Vince Staples, my favorite version of Vince Staples. Because as you said, the beats are minimal. He's really trying to tell a story throughout. Um, the hooks are played, the interludes are placed perfect spots. Um, just basically talking about the evolution of his growth from being a gangbanger in Long Beach to where he is now, having a house that nobody goes to except for his mom and his daughter. I mean, not his daughter. Excuse me. I'm Wallen. His sister. Um, and just being the guy on Twitter who cracks jokes, being the guy in interviews who cracks jokes and understands the music industry better than a lot of artists. So seeing that and seeing that storytelling throughout Vince Staples as well as Ramona Park Broke My Heart is really, really impressive. Um, Honestly, one track I do want to start talking about first is When Sparks Fly. I think that throughout the whole project, as we stated before, the beats are great. But I think that we last podcast we were talking about the importance of hooks and we were talking about the importance of interludes and the importance of breaks. Here on When Sparks Fly, there isn't really a hook, but more so just him allowing the beat to rock with that crazy sample. And just having that sample carry the interlude, if you would, from Vince verse to Vince verse is really, really strategic. It really, really shows that Vince Staples knows what he's doing with his music. And I think that's just there's other there's other songs we can go point to and look at and say this is intentional too. But like I think that When Sparks Fly is probably, at least if you're listening to the project in order, one of the first tracks that you encounter that it really, really becomes evident that Vince Staples is being very, very intentional with the sounds on this project.
Yeah, I think you said it really well. Vince Staples understands who Vince Staples is.
Mhm.
And that's really important in a lot of artists, especially when you come with back-to-back albums and back-to-back projects in back-to-back years. You have to understand who you are, and it can't be a situation, or it doesn't work in a lot of situations where the first record is either massively successful and you try to recapture that, or the first record flops and then you completely switch directions to find, something else. Cause that always feels a little like you're chasing something that might not be there. This feels like not so much a continuation, but it's just this better and better understanding of himself as an artist. And last year in an interview with Ebro, he said that Vince Staples was a real effort at giving people who have openly been like, I like his interviews more than his music. I like listening to him speak more than I like listening to, like you said, Summertime '06, Big Fish Theory, FM. It's giving a, like, not calmer necessarily, but it's giving just a more reserved, more to the point Vince Staples. And I think that this project, especially When Sparks Fly, and then the next song, East Point Prayer, when you look at his interviews for the last decade, Vince Staples has talked about, something happened when he was in, younger and he had to go to Atlanta. Those two songs in a row are kind of giving you that story in a very polished musical way. And it almost kind of brings you back to a time when that's how we learned about the stories of these musicians. It wasn't that someone caught Drake on video in a club throwing $1 million or whatever. It wasn't that someone was tweeting or on IG Live the whole time. We used to have to wait for an album to hear the story of like how things unfolded. So to get that, there's a little bit of nostalgia with it, and it's also just a level of polish that for me right now, Vince Staples has been one of my favorites for a long time, but for me right now, it's elevating him, regardless of sales, regardless of numbers, regardless of anything like that. It's elevating him to a point in the game where I don't think a lot of rappers understand themselves as well as Vince Staples understands himself.
I like that you bring up East Point Prayer. That's also one of the other tracks that I would point to as evidence of how intentional Vince has been with this project. First of all, you talk about him going to Atlanta. It's fitting that he got Lil Baby on this track.
It's perfect.
It honestly is. But the way that the beat on East Point Prayer is so minimal, but at the same time, you have that consistent bass that also builds up as the track goes on. And then also putting Lil Baby in the spot where I personally like Lil Baby the best, when he just starts spazzing on the beat and then the beat starts picking up when he catches that flow. I love that so much. Um, Probably aside from aside from the singles and maybe one other track, this is probably my favorite track on the project.
When Sparks Fly or East Point Prayer?
East Point Prayer.
Oh, it's far and away. It was my favorite the first time I listened to it. And like you said, I we missed, or we got like the tail end of when hip hop was still really regional.
Mhm.
And there was a distinct, obviously everyone knows where everyone's from, but because of the internet, things get a little muddied and everyone moves to LA. It's just like that. But to have a song that's about Vince's time in Atlanta and have Lil Baby on it, and like you said, the beat is so minimal, and in Vince's delivery, it's almost like down. It's like he is like sitting back, like completely like, you understand like the levity of the situation. You understand the gravity of the situation, that it's like, it's not some, oh, I did something crazy in Long Beach, so I had to go to Atlanta and let me tell you about how like, you know,
Like the Fresh Prince intro.
right, exactly. It's not like trying to prove any validity or give any validity to his
Mhm.
story, or credibility to his story because of it. It's more of a, this is what happened, this is why it happened, this is how it unfolded, without telling us all the details, which is honestly like, it feels better that way, as opposed to like I said, the Instagram live. That's like,
Mhm.
yo, like, you know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I love that just as much as, you know, everyone else. But to hear it given in a way that's just, it's really like introspective, very thoughtful, and you've put it perfectly a bunch of times. It's very intentional.
Another thing, I the one thing I hate about music or some tracks now is how artists neglect closing out a song. Sometimes they'll rap and they'll have the final verse, they'll finish the final line on the final verse, and then it's the next song. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, like, can I get some time to appreciate the beat? Can you give me something more than just two hooks in a verse? And I think that Paper Cuts is the exact opposite of that. I really, really love how Vince closes that track out. Um, Not really just allowing the beat to rock and just saying subtle or repeating just subtle little things over and over again really, really adds to the atmosphere on that track specifically, and as well as the atmosphere on the album as well.
Yeah. He we're gonna get to a point where we just keep like finding every positive thing about this album, and to
Mhm.
me, it's very easy to do that. Paper Cuts, Mama's Boy, all that. There's, if even just listening to his ad libs, if you try to tune out the main, you know, your second or third listen through, when you try to tune out the main vocals and you're listening to him in the background, there's added emotion there, there's added texture there, there's added, it's just giving other dimensions to every single song. And like you said about closing a song out, the songs flow very well together. And obviously you can do that with certain, you know, musical techniques. And sometimes that can be incredibly impressive. Like when you hear one part of the next beat coming through, and once you've listened to it enough, you're listening for that next song in the previous song. But everything about this, everything, like you said, the interludes are placed perfectly. Everything is placed in a way that it all flows together nicely. It's all very cohesive, but it's also not the same transition over and over. It's not the same, you know, song to song. And so it's fresh every single time. Even when it's a similar transition to maybe another point in the album, it's still not back to back to back. So I don't know. I think if we keep getting into all of the, you know, texture to this album, you can just keep finding, like, you know what I mean? You can keep singing the album's praises. And I'm not saying I'm against that, because I'm there for it. But I think all the introspective parts of this record and all the calmer spots where you're really, really listening to the story it makes the songs like Magic and Lemonade's awesome.
Yeah.
Lemonade's a really, like, and Ty Dolla $ign, you know, he does this thing like he always does in every feature he touches. So I don't know. I think this project is put together perfectly. And I think there's enough moments where you really can follow this like roller coaster of emotions with Vince. And then all of a sudden you come to a Lemonade and you're like, all right, like, okay, cool. Like, we're here. Like, this is a full bodied project. It's not just a, oh, like, here are all the things I've done. Here's how it affected me. It's like, no, it's a full musical project as well. So I don't know. I think this is a very well-rounded project. And as of now, it's my favorite project of 2022, and nothing's really close.
I think that I think the only project I'd probably put above this in terms of track listing, like the great execution of track listing, is probably Saba's project. But I think even between that is kind of a toss up between those two. That being said, I do think Vince Staples is probably it's Ramona Park Broke My Heart is probably in my top 5. Yeah, I feel safe saying it's in my top 5 right now. Real quick, which project do you think is better? Well, you're probably gonna say this one, but still, just asking the question. Do you think this Vince Staples project is better, or do you think that the Denzel Curry project? How do those two compare in your eyes
I actually
or in your
think
ears?
I think they're similar. I think they're coming from a similar spot in an artist's cycle, in their growth cycle. I think Vince has been around a little bit longer than Denzel Curry, which is why you maybe get this feels more grandiose than Denzel Curry's project that we talked about a couple weeks ago. But I think they're very similar to each other in the sense of where the artist is and what they're trying to accomplish with each respective project. And I think we said it when we were talking about Denzel Curry. Both of them feel very intentional, which is what I want. What I like the most about like rap music is when it's intentional, when it's on purpose, when I can hear the effort put into every single song and how things go together. So because of my like being a Vince Staples fan, I'm gonna like, yeah, sure. I'll be like, yeah, Vince Staples is better to me. I like Vince Staples more. But I think that they're actually more similar than they are different or even comparable.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only difference between the two is really the sonics and the variety of sonics. I think that Denzel Curry's project has way more different, a more variety of sounds on that one than Vince Staples' project. But when it comes to actual what both rappers are actually doing, because we're basically talking about producing and stuff like that, and to my knowledge, none of them really produce like that. But what both rappers are doing on these projects are, okay, I have a vision for how I want this song to sound. Give me the beat, and I'll do the rest. And they've done that extremely well. One last point I do want to bring up about this project, just to I guess put a bow on the idea of how intentional this project was. The track 1 and the outro track both have sounds of waves crashing on the beach, which I really, really love. It's a very subtle feature that kind of brings everything full circle, and I just really, really love that.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think I've always been really drawn to intros and outros to projects, because I think that's when I said it a couple weeks ago that I think track 2 sometimes sets the tone for how a project is really going to come together. But I think the first and last track are always an opportunity for an artist to, you're going into it with a more open mind. I think in both senses. It's when you're starting a project, you're like, all right, let's see what this is. And then when you get to the end of a project, you might know what it is, but it's still like, all right, how's this gonna wrap up? And I think to go for a full circle like that, like you said, it's just a really good record. And I think that's a really good way to like you said, put a bow on it. The conversation, but also the album.
Mhm. So what are your favorite tracks on Vince Staples' Ramona Park Broke My Heart?
When Sparks Fly, East Point Prayer, and Lemonade.
Mm-hmm. I got Free the Homies. That's come on. I agree with you. When Sparks Fly, East Point Prayer 2, Lemonade, I really enjoyed. Bang That, Rose Street, The Blues. I really like Magic too.
Yeah, I can't. I forget to talk about, or you know what I mean, because it's been out for a while now.
Mhm.
Rose Street too. The first 2 singles are great.
Yeah.
Like I was driving earlier to go get more stuff, for my new apartment. And I was like playing like Magic, Rose Street. Come on, it's like those are nice listening. Magic's great. Like I love Magic because it's still like Vince like talking his shit. There's no bones about, like, you know what I mean. There's no like, oh, this is Vince Staples' attempt at a pop record. It's like, no, Vince Staples is still talking Vince Staples shit. It just sounds really nice.
I also I need Vince Staples on the next Mustard project because Mustard is probably at this point still, well, he obviously had his moment where he's the best producer in the game, but now since he's kind of his beats have been more and more scarce, I'd say. He's kind of becoming underrated, but the next Mustard project, I for sure need some Vince Staples verses on that. Yeah, good project. Let's move on to Fivio Foreign's B.I.B.L.E, 17 tracks, 51 minutes long, featuring KC, Quavo, Kanye West, Alicia Keys, Queen Naija, Coi Leray, Chloe, ASAP Rocky, Lil Yachty, Lil TJ, Young Blue, DJ Khaled, Vori, Polo G, Blueface, and Neo. What did you think about Fivio Foreign's latest project?
You and I were talking about this off mic before the show. When the track list first came out and when the project first came out, I knew it would be good. You look at the people that are on it, you look at the people that Fivio Foreign's been working with, and you look at just his track record over the last 3 years. I knew it would be a solid project. I didn't expect how much I would like it. Mm-hmm. Listening to it, not in the same way of Vince Staples or Denzel Curry, this project feels very intentional and understands what it is, and Fivio understands who he is as a rapper, as an artist. And I think this is a very well executed project that honestly, I think I'll be listening to for a while. A lot of the songs I really like playing in certain scenarios. And it does have replay value to me in terms of, we were also talking about like when a guy starts blowing up in his early 30s, for whatever reason, there's a whole lot more for a rapper to talk about in the music that starts coming out afterwards. So it's easier to get into that story as opposed to trying to keep up with someone's story as it's going along. I think Fivio at this point really understands who he is. And at first I was the first couple of songs, I was like, all right, this song is named B.I.B.L.E, or the album is named B.I.B.L.E. He was on Donda 2 a bunch. Obviously Off the Grid was huge. And I was like, all right, is this trying to make Kanye happy? Is this trying to make like Kanye not proud necessarily? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then I listened to it and I was like, if this did make Ye proud, it's because it's really good, not because it's a pandering or whatever. This is a good project. And I was thoroughly impressed by the project and just thoroughly impressed by how much I liked it.
Mm-hmm. When I first saw the track list, I kind of was disappointed, if I'm being honest. Like there's some artists on here that I probably there's artists on here that I haven't heard from in a while. Alicia Keys, Blueface, Neo. There's also artists who aren't necessarily established yet. You have Casey, you have Vori, Young Blue is someone who's up and coming. And then you have like the artists that everyone gets a feature from or tries to get a feature from at least. You have Kanye, Quavo, Chloe's on a lot of tracks as a feature now. ASAP Rocky's is a hot feature right now as well. So I didn't really know what to expect going into this project. Also, when you look at drill music and how one-dimensional it could be at times, I gotta say my hopes for this project were not high at all. But that being said, I think that Fivio is starting to figure out how he wants to elevate the genre, the subgenre of drill music. I think when Pop Smoke first came out and Brooklyn Drill was fairly new, the tracks that I always liked the most were the ones with him and Lil TJ, because there was such a contrast between Pop Smoke's aggressive style and Lil TJ singing, and it just flowed together so perfectly. And that's basically the formula that 504 followed for this whole project. When you look at Casey, that's someone who's more melodic. Alicia Keys, obviously one of the best singers. Queen Naija, one of the hottest singers. Coi Leray was melodical. Chloe's one of the up and coming great singers right now. Lil TJ sang on this. Young Blue, his verse was more. He rapped. I guess it was more rap-esque than what I'm used to from Young Blue, but it was still very melodic. Vori melodic. Neo, it's Neo. It's he's not gonna rap. Like, let's be honest
It's
here.
Neo.
So
Yo,
I love
Toxic Neo, best Neo.
So I just love the fact, the intention that I think the whole I guess by the end, this whole podcast is basically just about artist intention at this point. But I love the intention of picking these features. I also love the intention of picking the beats. I think that once again, because of how drill is, it can be redundant sometimes, but having those different types of melodies under those drill, under the characteristics of drill music is really, really helpful to a drill project in general. That's why I really like Sleepy Hollow and Chef G. Those are two artists who typically have more unique melody under their drill beats as well. So that's why I really, really like them out of all the drill rappers. But that being said, 504, and also another thing too, Off the Grid, that verse, 504's verse on Off the Grid is probably the best verse of his career. And for him to keep that flow on some of these tracks and flesh that out a little bit more and understand, okay, this is why I'm hot right now. Let me keep doing it. I really, really appreciate, but still at the same time, not being too one-dimensional, which is really, really important as well. Overall, I'm just really, really impressed by this album. Like you, Taylor.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like the Off the Grid, like we could have got a whole record of Off the Grids, and a lot of people would have been happy with that. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't have been happy with that, but it's like when certain rappers, you can tell they're about to get in their best, like their best mode, get in their bag, do what they do best. And Off the Grid is probably when, 504 is at his best. So to hear, because you can hear it coming in a lot of these songs, you can hear it like, all right, he's gonna go. Other songs though, you're like, all right, it's not going to be like that, but I'm interested because of how impactful and how powerful that way that he does that is. I'm like, there's more than enough interest level for me to really give all the other stuff a chance. And like you said, I think it's really important to bring up Lil TJ, because him and Pop Smoke, their impact, everyone talks about Pop Smoke, and it's obviously understandable why. And I think some of the stuff they've done with his posthumous music has been tough to listen to at times, because it's just not, it doesn't feel like it's in the same, spirit as it was when he was still here. But him and Lil TJ are two of like the real pioneers of this most recent drill movement, especially in New York City. Obviously it's happening everywhere. It was early 2010s at Chicago. Like that was what was going on there. And we have the early 2020s now, and it's shifting. It has a different epicenter right now, and that's fine. But to give Lil TJ his flowers for that, and also include him on a project like this, because this is probably, I mean, you have Mike Dean in this, you have Kanye on it, you have all of these like huge people either working on it, appearing on it. And I think besides maybe some of the Pop Smoke albums, this is probably the biggest album to come out of this movement so far. So to include one of the most important people, one of the people who were there at the beginning of all of this. And that's not to say that Fivio Foreign wasn't there at the beginning of this, because he was.
He was.
No,
Yeah,
right. No,
yeah, no,
but
like yeah.
But he had other things going on where Lil TJ, it was just different. So to have him on this project, and especially this, what he's doing, like, I think actually Lil TJ is one of the more underappreciated artists out right now.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes he gets lost in the shuffle because he's not the one working with Kanye. He's not the one on Off the Grid, but that shouldn't take away from the impact that he actually does have.
I looked out of New York in the last 5 years. Lil TJ is probably one of my favorite artists. If I'm being honest, his last album was really, really good. The album before that was good as well. I do prefer him to sing than rap. He had one project where I think he tried to rap on drill beats, and I was like, this isn't it. But then he got back the next project, back on his singing shit, and I really, really appreciated that. Some of my favorite tracks, I already said it, but just so the viewer or the audience knows some tracks I'm referring to. War by Pop Smoke and Lil TJ, probably one of my favorite Pop Smoke songs. Mannequin, Pop Smoke and Lil TJ, one of my favorite Pop Smoke songs as well. I just think that this is the way that drill music needs to go for New York to be able to be back at a level where we can claim we're the epicenter of hip hop. Like this is our shit. Like Atlanta, what y'all doing over there is cool. LA, what y'all doing over there is cool. Memphis, Detroit, what y'all doing over there is cool. But everybody knows where this shit came from. And I think that
Big 30's gonna have something to say about that, Nate.
He actually dropped a single like today. I'm excited. I haven't heard it yet, but I'm gonna be listening to it. But I think that this is a really, really good project. I think that another thing too, because at least in the city, the mayor of New York was threatening to ban drill music because of the violent lyrics and stuff like that, and all there's politics there. But I think that Fivio Foreign showing that drill music is, you can use drill music, and there have been other artists who have done this before as well, but I guess not on such a national level, I'd say. Having love drill songs or just like regular drill songs where you're not threatening anybody or you're not dissing anybody is really, really important for the genre too, to just have that type of versatility within the genre. I think is really important for that to grow it out. So overall, I think that this is a really, really big step for drill music. Great project.
Yeah, I think it's important. And granted, I'm not from New York. Obviously, I'm from Massachusetts. I get in the city and I'm like, oh man, I see a couple Yankee hats and I'm like, all right, I gotta leave. Like I gotta get out of here. But it as a hip hop fan, it should be the epicenter.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. Growing up, we haven't really had that. Yeah. Like the way that in the 90s when you had DMX, Jay-Z, Biggie, like you had Nas, like you had the ones. They were all from not the same borough, but they were all from New York. We haven't, as born in the late 90s, coming up, really getting into music the early 2010s, we haven't had that where New York is like the spot. And I think that you said it perfectly, where it's a big step for drill music. And I hope it's a big step for New York, because there's this misconception that there's no good artists in New York, but that like New York's still being carried by like these like legends. And obviously like Hove is still doing music. Nas put out King's Disease 1, King's Disease 2.
Magic.
So it's not like, right, it's not like they're just not doing anything. This morning.
Tell hit, we got a hit. Hey, all right, I'm done.
You have loved both those projects, but it's just important to have. It feels important to have these artists who are making an impact on the biggest scale from New York City, and it's not like there's no forced about it. There's nothing, and it's really a movement right now. It's not just it's not like obviously, because there's like the whole thing where it's like, all right, the New York guys could be like lyrical miracle, like
this is what real rap is.
Yeah, sometimes you can't recapture the essence of a Mobb Deep. Like you can't. Like it's a different time. It's like it's not 1994 anymore, and that's okay. but I think this is really important for the evolution of a genre, of a subgenre, and hopefully it's like a continued progress for a city to get back to where they belong in terms of being the most important city in this genre of music.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think just looking at first of all, New York has so many different types of artists. You still have Coda the Friend, who's more lyrical and more intentional with his words. You have the drill rappers, and then you have Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, female rap. Like, there's so many different essences to the city right now. Whereas compared to Atlanta, you know, it's trap, or compared to LA, the West Coast, you know what type of beats they're gonna rap on. Like, I think just New York is just like the city being, I guess, the salad bowl of the United States. I think that that's also starting to show up in hip hop too, being the salad bowl, having all these different styles mixed together. So it'll be interesting to see if drill is able to emerge and start dominating the city the same way that boom bap once did. But I do, as I said before, this is another step in the right direction for that. What are your favorite tracks off of B.I.B.L.E?
So I think the first three to open this project are really good. On God, Through the Fire, and Magic City. I think that's a perfect, like I said, when I first put it on and I even heard the first track, I was like, all right, is this for Kanye West? Is this to show Kanye, hey, like I did it? You know what I mean? I can
Put me
make
on
this
down to 3.
exactly. Like, you know what I mean? This is not down to 2.5, but it's like, all right, I did my thing in our lane. The first three songs are such a great, they set the tone so well. I was disappointed by the ASAP Rocky feature
Me
on
too.
Confidence, but I like World Watching, like we talked about. And then the last song, Can't Be Us, is really good.
Mm-hmm. If you don't close out a record, the replay value automatically sinks to me. And I think that 504 did that on Can't Be Us.
Yeah.
That's probably because another thing too, even if you're listening to a project, this is a tangent, but if you're listening to an album, if there's bonus tracks at the end and you don't really know which ones are the bonus ones, there's just a certain feel to an outro track where you know, okay, this is the end and these are tracks that are added in for numbers or for whatever reason. So Can't Be Us, the execution on that was great. Like you said, the first track, I'm forgetting the name of it right now. What's the name of the first track?
First track is On God, right?
Yeah, On God, yeah.
Yeah.
On God, very good execution of that as well. I do love Through the Fire with Quavo. I do love Magic City with Quavo. Hello, really good track. Feel My Struggles really good, and I just mentioned it, but I'm gonna mention it again. Can't Be Us, probably one of my favorites as well. So yeah, that's hip hop for the past week. This week, I think T Grizzly dropped, and that's probably like the only person I'm gonna listen to. I might be forgetting someone else, but I do like T Grizzly, so I'm gonna listen to that shit. Yeah, but other than that, it's playoffs. Baseball season started. It was Jackie Robinson Day yesterday. Yeah, that's it. Getting warmer in the city. Had an 80-degree day. I don't know why I'm just recapping the week. I guess that's
hey, it's a good thing. It's important.
had an 80-degree week, Ben Simmons might come back for game 4. Taylor's over there shaking in his boots.
All right. Yeah, him and Patrick Williams. I hide in the corner every night thinking about Ben Simmons and Patrick Williams.
Patrick Williams is gonna be a star. I can't wait. But yeah, this is the Cap episode 304. That is Taylor McLeod. I am Nate Sperlin. I'm sure as we were talking about both projects, you decided somewhere in between to like and subscribe to the channel, but I'm just going to kindly ask you to do that again. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on OldMilk, on Instagram and Twitter at OldMilk Media. Check out the OldMilk Spins playlist, and all links will be in the description. Also, check out episode 6 of the It's All Opinion podcast. Stay safe, wear a mask, wash your hands. There's a new variant out, so make sure you keep scrubbing, dubbing, and we will be back when hip hop tells us to be.